Okay, we are live streaming.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Monday, September 13th, and this is the joint work session of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners and the Toledo City Council. I'm Doug Hunt, Chair of the Board of Commissioners, and next thing, let's have some, well, before we do introductions of attendees, just a couple of brief remarks. These joint work sessions really are, I think, something that originated when Don Lindley was county commissioner. Of course, I think most of you know that Don passed away recently and was the longest serving commissioner in the history of our county, having served over 21 years. And the idea was that this was an opportunity, joint work sessions were an opportunity for the Board of Commissioners to meet with each of the city councils in the county and also the tribe to talk about areas of interest and to facilitate better communication and ultimately to address common issues in an effort to better serve our citizens and align our efforts. So with that, I'll allow my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves. I saw Commissioner Hall's microphone turn green first.
Claire Hall, County Commissioner.
Katie Jacobson, also County Commissioner. Nice to see everybody tonight.
Hey, Katie, you're a little bit distant in your mic, just FYI.
Thanks. It's because I just realized this had fallen off my table.
All
So
right,
thank you for
much
that.
better.
I'll clip it to myself.
All right, well, we got that technological problem overcome. All right, Mayor Cross, I'll let you introduce your counselors.
Well, I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'll introduce
Fair enough.
myself. I'm Rod Cross, Mayor, City of Toledo. Go ahead, Betty.
Betty Kamikawa, Toledo City Council.
Wade.
Wade Carey, Toledo City Council, calling from the roadside of Highway 22.
Rob.
Rob Dupra, Toledo City Council.
Those are the ones that are with us at the moment.
Okay, very good. We have an agenda and we try to keep these work sessions to an hour. So we can, I guess, keep that in mind as we move forward. The first thing on the agenda is the CIRUS plan, and understand there was a presentation made to the Toledo City Council, and I believe Betty Kamikawa is, I guess, one of the entities or people behind this. So Betty, I'll turn it over to you from here and see how we can work together.
Okay, so I sent you some information about the process that is used. Sirius is a plant that takes biosolids, which are hydrocarbon based, and turns them back into water, energy, some mineral solids, and CO2, which can be captured. I believe that's everything. Yeah. And so basically what it does is it runs it through a vacuum heat system, and that removes the majority of the water. Then the leftovers get run into a reactor that's a catalytic reactor that splits off the hydrocarbons or the hydrogen from the carbons, connects them with the oxygen, and produces the water. And that's where the CO2 comes from too, is it combines the oxygen and CO2 that can be captured and turned into carbon fiber. So the reason that Toledo really wants this plant is because our system was built in the 40s and we really would like something different. We also truck our biosolids out to the Siletz Valley and land apply them, which we know is not a good thing. We have shifted our plans so that we're no longer applying above our water intakes, which that helps. But there's controversy over whether it's really bad for it or not, but we don't want to risk it anymore. This system not only produces its own energy so that we don't have to input energy, but it probably will produce extra energy that can be sold back to the grid or used somewhere else in the city of Toledo or someplace else. So to do all this, we have asked the federal government, Senator Merkley, for $6 million to build this plant. What we need from the county commissioners is help us get the senator to push the federal government hard to get this $6 million. $4 million of it is to build the pilot, the first unit. The unit they have now is a scaled down version. It works. We have the water analysis to prove it, because what comes out is clean distilled water. And after they're done tweaking it some more, it'll probably be to the grade where you could drink it. So if we don't get to that point, we still have it to the point where it can be put back out into the environment as clean water, which also benefits the environment. So either way, we would put back all the water we've taken in plus 7% more is what they're averaging. So so the $4 million is for building the first unit, and then another unit. Toledo will need 2 units. The first unit is the pilot project. The second unit is part of the pilot project, and then it'll have upgrades and be tweaked. And hopefully that'll be the one that's the final product that gets sold out into the world. And so we will be the first to have that. And I can geek out all day on it. But the other thing that's important to the piece to this is that the other $2 million is to build a area where we can train people. We want to build a facility to train people for to build these, to build the parts for these, maybe even build the parts in Toledo, to assemble them for sure here. And once they're assembled, one unit is the size of a shipping container. So then it gets shipped out to the facility as in that shipping container, and that's what they get. So we should be able to send them out by rail or by truck from Toledo. It also would be a training center for technicians to run them and to maintain them. And, I'm seeing areas for salespeople to learn. This facility is for us to put out in the world all these new people, new working wage people, so that they can build a better environment for the world. And that's what this is all about, is helping Toledo, helping the community, and pushing that forward and out into the county, and out into the country, and out into the world. So we're going to do, I'd like to do, the reason I asked you guys to do a biosolids summit update so that we could show this to everybody. We could invite all the cities to come and everybody come and see how this all works from the guys that are putting it together. They explain it so much better than I can. They understand, it's chemistry. It's high school chemistry and high school physics. It really is simple, but at the same time, it's too complicated for me to explain it in 10 minutes. So, but they can do it in 15, which is amazing, and show you all the different pieces of their scaled up version. So, or their scaled down version. So, Rod, you got anything to add?
Yeah. So those of you that have been around me over the last 4 years or so know that I'm hot on trying to figure out how to do a better job of taking care of not just my city's waste stream, but also the environment. And in my investigations and in getting to know people, I was really blessed by having one of the members of our community who had just come from working with these gentlemen. And he heard me talking about a normal incinerator. And I'm sure some of you heard me talking about that 3 or 4 years ago. And this system literally does nothing but take in effluent and turn it into water, carbon, and mineral salts. That's what it does. And at 1/7 the cost of normal incineration. Yes, you heard me correctly. 1/7 the cost. And so the power output on the proposed generation, and this is just a normal one. It's not, it's the byproduct of the system, is 250 kilowatt hours. So you're talking about a system that generates its own energy for its own production, a system that generates very, very little solid waste in return. They're working with several carbon capture companies because we said that's an important factor. We can't just be spitting CO2 right back into the air. It kind of defeats the purpose. And in case you're wondering, it takes all that methane that normally gets given off. That is part of the energy that is produced, is that methane. So they've now done their second major water study on what gets left, right? What gets produced. And the original screen off of water in the vacuum system. So normally you have with EPA and our NPDS certifications on our wastewater plant, things are measured in parts per million. Well, in several categories, it's now parts per billion with this system. It is extremely effective. It's energy efficient. It takes any type of hydrocarbon chain. So say it's Georgia Pacific's black liquor. It will take Georgia Pacific's black liquor and it can turn that right back into clean water that can either be reused like for steam in their systems or be discharged into the environment. Because it'll make the water cleaner than we can even do now. And that's, to me, that is a system that we need to get a hold of. And I truly believe that this will revolutionize wastewater treatment in this country. But it's got to start somewhere, and we're asking to be that starting point.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions, and then I'll see if my fellow commissioners have questions or comments. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking of the county. Certainly, I'm supportive of your efforts to address the issue of the wastewater from your sewer treatment plant. But of course, the county doesn't have any.
No, but your citizen, what we're asking for, Doug, is a letter of support.
Okay. Well,
okay,
I think
it's nothing. We're not asking for money or anything in that regard. Just a letter of your support to be able to send to Senator Merkley and to Representative Schrader, because we're attacking this from both ends. That the county supports it, because the water is everybody's in the counties. It's not just ours. And so
I understand
that's why we're bringing it to you.
Okay.
Because we want you to be aware of what we're doing. And secondly, to hopefully get you on board with at least, trying to make this test site work.
Right. The reason I started where I did is I didn't know if there was an effort to try to get other municipalities on board within the county, because as you said, wastewater is really a countywide issue, but not a particular issue for the county.
Right.
But I guess I would suggest that you have a letter of support you'd like us to consider, to send it to us, and we can take a look at it. And then if my fellow commissioners and I agree, we'll be happy to send it to Senator Merkley.
Okay.
But again, I'll at this point defer to my fellow commissioners for any comments or thoughts. Katie,
Go ahead, Claire.
I was just going to say, I think it's an easy ask and something that I'm pretty sure I would be supportive of.
Okay, Katie?
Yeah, I would certainly put my name on a letter of support, but I guess I had a couple questions.
Mhm.
You said you were working with, I think you said Schrader or Merkley's office, probably both.
Mhm.
On this, is that because you have a congressionally directed spending request in? Is that
That's
the
what
ask
it'll end
is?
up being.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't yet, but
w-
that's where it's gonna go. Mhm.
So we've put this on the fast track because of the emphasis everyone's having now on infrastructure. So we've been in contact with both of their offices. I have a follow-up phone call tomorrow morning with Representative Schrader's office. And so hopefully we can get this in the pipeline as soon as possible. You know, the sooner for us, the better. Because we do want other municipalities, Doug, to be able to latch on to this. But, you know, we have to prove the technology at the scale of doing a municipality. Because as we pointed out, one of the things that they're going to have to be able to figure out how to handle is our large stream flows when we have a winter rain event.
Mhm.
Okay. And so that's part of where we're headed with all this is we're going to be the test bed. We're going to use our system to try and figure out how to make it all work. The nice part is that where our wastewater treatment plant is, we have a spot for that container right there. So if anything happens, we can immediately switch right back into the old school way of doing it. And that's part of the reason why I'm very interested in trying to make this happen. Because I think we're the perfect place for this to get tested.
And then
Commissioner Jacobs, go ahead.
yeah, my second question was, I mean, have you had any conversations with the state on this? Because the state got a bunch of ARPA money, which you can use on water related projects and sewer projects. And so I was just curious if you were just tapping in the federal delegation or if you're also working the state angle as well.
Well, because of our NPDES permit is federally regulated, we're going mostly at the EPA. Because they're the ones that set the standards. DEQ just enforces those standards. But Representative Gomberg and Senator Anderson are both in the pipeline. They know what's going on. I'm in regular contact with David on this stuff. So they know it's happening, but we also know that because of the regulations and where they derive from, we need to start at the top down on this one.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to follow up, I have a meeting with Senator Merkley's people on the 22nd. So we are moving ahead on this. And I asked for a biosolid summit just so that we could get all of the cities there to see the whole thing. And so they would know what was going on and might be interested in and looking at it in the future for themselves. So that was the reason I asked the commissioners to bring together everybody for a biosolid summit. I mean, we could do that later. We could do it now. You know, I've already got serious talking to the haulers at the beginning, the garbage haulers at the beginning of October, because this will also work on their waste stream. So we're working hard at all kinds of angles on this one because this is a fantastic system.
Sorry about that interruption. That was my daughter. And I've now turned my phone up. Well, I think, at least from my standpoint, it sounds like there's support for a letter from the county on your behalf. And then my suggestion would be, as we get further into the process, and I think there's a little more clear idea of all of the details, that might be an appropriate time to approach the other cities. But I'm a little hesitant to convene a group with them really not having any background or knowledge, I guess, at this point. So happy to consider a letter, and we'll see if it makes sense to have a group meeting in the future.
Thank you very much, Doug. We really appreciate your support.
No, not a problem. Water is important to all of us, that's for sure. All right, if there's nothing more, we'll move on to, I'm going to combine the C and D, which is the status of the Wagon Road transfer and Audie Lane status. And I believe we have Director Kenyon on the phone, or on the phone, virtually, whatever. I'll welcome him to the group.
Good evening. I'm Roy Kenyon, Lincoln County Public Works Director. The status of Wagon Road transfer. Someone's going to have to enlighten me. I didn't realize there was any transferring going on there.
Yeah, let me say, I think this has come up before, and if I remember correctly, and I did kind of touch bases with Director Kenyon earlier today, we don't think there's anything more to be done with Wagon Road.
So when I left office way back when, it was still in limbo. And speaking to our public works director, he said there were still chunks still in the county, still under county jurisdiction. And way back when, we had asked the county commissioners to have any other sections of Wagon Road transferred to the city to at least cut us down to only two owners of Wagon Road instead of three. And so as far as I knew, we still hadn't had that happen. And that's why I was asking that question, because I don't know, it just seems cleaner to only have two instead of three. But do you guys have paperwork that said that it all been done?
No, because I don't know that anyone believed there was anything to be done. Going back through the file, there was a lot of research done in the early 80s. Dan Owsley was the city attorney back then. Nancy Craven was county counsel, and there was some back and forth about the actual status of Wagon Road. And at that point in time, it was determined that the road itself was never accepted into the county road system. And therefore, anything that fell outside the city limits of Toledo was classified as a local access road. Okay. So a public road.
Right.
And then jump forward to 2011, Jim Beisman had similar discussion with Adam Denlinger at that time, kind of over the same discussion that we're having now. And Jim's comment was that he felt that Nancy Craven's research was valid, in that any portion of Wagon Road that sat outside of the city limits of Toledo was classified as a local access road. So still not county maintained. Now the question is, how do we get these orphan sections that don't sit within the city limits, basically, I guess, legally? I hate to use the word transfer, because it's not really like it's a transfer. It's almost like you're annexing those sections.
Okay.
For a long section of the beginning of the road, the city limit line is on the west side of the road. And so if you moved it 40 feet to the east, it would be yours. And so I don't really know.
Okay.
Like I say, when it comes to transfer versus annex. Now I know when a city moves their boundaries, any local access road within the boundaries automatically becomes jurisdiction of the city. I think it's more on this. In this case, it might take a little bit of research on my part, or a little research on county council's part on both sides, because I don't know how do you accept a chunk of road that's not within your city limits.
So Roy, I'm going to say this, and I hope it brings a smile to your face. In 60 seconds, I've just gotten more explanation about Wagon Road than I got in years of asking that question back in the 2000s. I am very happy to hear that, because now there's something we can actually do. And so thank you very much. You have no idea how happy it makes me feel that there's actually a road out of this.
So is that like a play on words?
Yes, I'm trying to be cute. It's in the it's nighttime. But no, literally, I've heard more in your 60-second explanation than I heard in 3 or 4 years of asking that question. Thank you very much.
Sure. And like I said, I'm not sure the road we take on this, which path. But that's basically how the county views this road as a local access road, that's a whole different story. And that
Exactly. But it's a start. It's an actual place to go from.
Yes.
So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You bet.
All right, so we won't see that on the agenda next year. Thank you.
No,
Roy.
you won't. I won't ask that question again.
Not a problem. Thank you, Mayor. All right, can we have equal success on Andy Lane?
That was a question from my public works director. Judy, is he with us tonight?
No, Bill isn't with us, but I think that actually it was David Robinson that brought up Andy Lane.
Is David with us?
I don't think so.
Is he? I don't think so.
He's not listed as a participant.
Okay. I think it had something to do with, there was some, I'm not sure exactly what it was. They were replatting something there, and how they did it determined how that section of Andy Lane was going to go. They had all the particulars. I assumed one of them would be here to talk about it. So that one's on us.
So is this a road question, or is it more of a county property question?
Yeah,
I am not sure. That's my problem.
And
well, the discussion that I heard today, I think indicated that it was more a county property issue. That it is, I think Andy Lane is one of those properties that has an easement and hasn't really been platted as a road. And, maybe it's a private access.
yeah,
But,
Judy, you're correct on that. So I had talked to Amy Howard, who's our property manager, couldn't be here tonight, and that's exactly what the situation is. It's not a county road, in quotes. It was a piece of property that wasn't, I guess, platted correctly, but was taken in a tax foreclosure. And there's a lot of rules around what we can and can't do when we take property.
yeah.
Commissioner Jacobson.
So it's messy.
Commissioner
it's
Jacobson. I'm here.
complicated.
Oh, Amy is here. Oh, yay, Amy.
I am
You
here.
Explain it.
So it's not Andy Lane. I actually pulled all of the properties that the county owns that are tax foreclosed parcels like you were speaking about. And the one that's the big issue right now is Southeast 7th Street. I'm sure you all have heard from the residents of the road on that one. So, and like Commissioner Jacobson said, because it is a tax foreclosure, we are limited on how we can spend our money on this. And maintaining or improving the road is not one of those options. So this being one of 8 that we really ideally could get transferred to the city.
What does it take to move that forward?
So we've done some different things in the past with other cities. We've done kind of a bundle transfer. And I've also with the city of Yachats done before where I've just deeded the properties to them under the understanding that they will make it a public access or public road or city street or whatever they're going to do with it, however they're going to dedicate it.
Is that a viable option in this situation?
Yes, absolutely. It's really up to the city. And of course, just with Kristen's approval that we can go ahead with that.
Well, and certainly we would have to have some discussion about, what the issues would be for us to accept it. I think it would cost us some pretty good upgrades as far as, making a road and paving it and maintaining it and all of that. So I think that's kind of been the rub.
So if I paraphrase, the dilemma is the county, which currently owns the road because of a tax foreclosure, is limited in its ability to maintain it, which is a source of frustration for the property owners. In the city, if they were to take over ownership, may not have the resources to properly maintain it. So sounds to me like a catch-22.
You've got it, Doug.
In which case, I guess we'll look to the city if you want to proceed. I'm sure we'd be happy to have a dialogue toward that objective. But again, as Amy has said, and I trust County Council would correct me, we are limited in what we can do to maintain that road by law.
So Doug, let me make a suggestion. Have Amy send over all these 7 parcels that are in this boat, as it were, and let us sit down and we'll take a look at them, see what we can do with them, and then we'll come back to you guys and let you know where we're at on each one, so that we're not recycling stuff over for next time around.
Sounds like a good plan, Amy. Are you okay with that?
That sounds great.
Suggestion though, instead of putting them in a boat, let's put them in a dump truck.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, I'm sure the residents of the road will be happy to hear that we're discussing it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Amy, while this is not on our agenda, but just because we do have the city of Toledo here, and maybe like 2 minutes, can you give us like a quick 2-minute update on King Salvage? I thought that might be of interest.
Oh yeah, so we are about ready to go into our second phase of spending Brownsfield money to finish the cleanup. So the real first phase was property management had a good year, and we were able to put some money in getting some of the what's considered for us personal property disposed of that's left behind there. And then we were approved and we got our Brownsfield money about a month ago, and they went in and started removal and doing the in-water work, and quickly realized we had a lot more than they had anticipated. So we put in for a change order, and we're expecting our contractor to move in this week, which should hopefully remove the rest of the solid waste, as well as one of the drainage pipes that the former residents installed there that does prevent it from becoming a salmon bearing stream once again. So we'll remove that. We've also done all of our soil sampling, so we'll know what we're looking at in terms of, you know, are we cooking the ground? What are we doing to finish our remediation?
Thank you, Amy. I thought that this might be relevant to everybody here, so appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also sit on the Regional Solutions Council, and have touched bases with Sarah Means, and this is a Regional Solutions priority. And Mary, I can never remember her last name, with DEQ, is well aware of the challenges and is working hard to find more money, and we continue to support that effort. All right, move on. I believe we have the sheriff here to talk about the Measure 110 and the impacts, effects on the county.
Good evening. I am Kurt Slanders, Lincoln County Sheriff, and I don't know if I'll be able to specifically touch on the effects yet on Lincoln County, but the Judicial Department did put out some statistics that you might find interesting, and you can kind of probably relate them to Lincoln County as I go through them. These statistics were put out, the Measure 1 to effect February 1st, and this was through June, so July these came out. Just kind of an overview for reminder for everybody. Measure 110 reduced the penalties for most possession of controlled substance offenses from a misdemeanor to a new Class E violation, which has a maximum penalty of a $100 fine. We also had Senate Bill 755 that I believe was signed by the governor in July that did some amendments. Specifically, the major changes that were in that were for the courts. They require that all those citations go through a circuit court, not a justice or municipal court. And that also required that law enforcement provide screening information with the citation when it was issued. So those kind of the major changes that Senate Bill 755 had with it. But just, kind of at a glance over the first, I believe that'd be 5 months, there were 1,085 Class C violations filed, and that resulted in 704 convictions, but 400 of them are convicted because they failed to appear. So that's kind of a large number out of over 1,000 citations of people that are failing to appear. And with this too, the $100 fine, the way it was written, is the only penalty that can be placed on somebody. So basically you can fail to appear and there's no additional penalty. The judge can't impose any other fail to appear or any other sanctions to go with that. Out of that, also 42 are dismissed for whatever reason, 339 are still pending. But here's probably the one thing that I found a little, because the whole reason for this and a lot of the support was to get people help that are drug addicted, to get people the assessment and screening. But out of that 1,085 citations that were issued so far, only 3 people completed an assessment or screening that was verified. And I know there's still a lot of things going in place to get that put up, but there's been a phone line in place since February 1st that people could call and go through a even initial screening process over the telephone. So that's a little concerning to me that's 3 out of over 1,000. And then also the other one is 90 people have received multiple Class E citations for this. So that's also a little bit alarming too, that so many people are receiving multiple citations. Violations by county, Lincoln County's had 40 of those 1,085 citations issued. Josephine County has the most so far at 191, followed by Lane at 114 and Benton with 86. Also kind of an interesting statistic to me. Multnomah, our largest populated county, only had 23. So, I'm not sure. I guess I'm not sure why that would be the case. As far as what the violations are being, what type of substance, 68% was for methamphetamine, 20% was for heroin, and then kind of really low percentages for cocaine. Oxycodone was only 1%, and other class or schedule 1 to 4 violations. Another statistic that again is a little alarming to me, 27% of the people that received these had other criminal charges with them, and the most frequent criminal charges were delivery of methamphetamine, driving under the influence, felon in possession of weapon, driving while suspended, or driving while uninsured too. So a lot of other violations going with it, with a quarter of the people doing that. As far as demographics, 69.6% were male, 24.7% female, over 5% were missing. With race, 77.3% were white, followed by Hispanic with 4.9%, Black at 1.3%, Indian was 1.2%. So, and then there were a lot, I think there was 182 that were missing or unavailable out of that. So just kind of a quick rundown that they sent out, which I thought was a little interesting. Again, it's still a lot of things implementing, and I don't know about the true effects for, we'll see for some time. I had hoped that the intent of this ballot measure to get people into some kind of assessment, screening, and help that they need was going to really move forward. But so far the statistics are not showing that's happening. So,
Sheriff.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff. Questions? Go ahead, Mayor.
So, and this is mostly for the commissioners, but since the county is the health department and the mental health provider, has the county seen any increase in monies from the state? Because that was the other part that was supposed to come from this, was that there was supposed to be more money available for these treatments and for the assessment options. And since you're the provider in the county, I'm curious if the state has come through with any bags of money for you on this.
And see, I don't know if our health department was necessarily, as one of the ones that could actually reach out for this. I think a lot of other organizations were providing that screening and assessment. And it really, since I don't think it's fully set up with the screening yet. I think they still have the telephone line in place, and that's obviously was paid for with that funding to get that going. From my understanding, the marijuana tax dollars. So
I don't have any additional information. I can tell you in my frequent discussions with Jane Romero, who's the director of our Health and Human Services Department, the funding from this source has not been a topic of discussion, which would mean to me that there's probably not much, if any, money coming.
Thank you,
And
Doug.
maybe the mechanism isn't in place. But that's the best I can offer.
That's okay. I prefer the bare bones honesty. So thank you, Doug.
I tell you what, I'll be having a conversation with the director on Thursday. So I'll make a note and ask her. And I see you once in a while, Mayor, at a football game or two. See if can't give you an update. You're muted.
Well, there's also I swerve around you on the road, so we'll run into each other somehow, hopefully in a good way.
I'm sure it'll be in a good way. All right, move on to we've got about 3 items left in about 15 minutes. Winter homeless shelter. I don't know who wants to comment on that. I guess I will say that the county finally is moving forward with an RFP to redevelop the former fairgrounds into the commons. And we expect that redevelopment to be starting soon. And I think have said previously that we do not see that facility being available for homeless shelter. I don't know if Commissioner Hall, who is on the fair board, would want to comment on that, or Commissioner Jacobson. But at this point, we're going ahead with a commons plan, and that facility is not expected to be available for homeless sheltering. Everybody freeze? No. I froze everyone with that comment. Sorry. Commissioner Hall, anything to add?
Yeah, no, except on the fair board that my understanding is as soon as our next meeting, we will have an RFP for, kind of to take the master plan that's already been completed and take it to design stage and construction plans. In the meantime, we have the exhibit hall building committed roughly through the end of the calendar year for COVID vaccinations and testing. So with at least the hope that we'll be able to get into a demolition stage very early in calendar year 2022.
Good point about the vaccinations. I'd forgotten that. Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing I was just going to add is I had gosh, yesterday was Sunday. Friday, must have been Friday then, had a conversation with Spencer Niebel, the city manager for the city of Newport. He was asking the same questions. I think as Paul is getting here, his council is bringing up the same thing, told him the same thing Commissioner Hunt just told you. Spencer was going to go and reach out to several churches in the faith community and see if they could come to some type of use agreement with one of those facilities for winter sheltering. And he also was going to pull in some type of group, from different cities and representatives, et cetera, to kind of try to put together a plan. So I think they're maybe taking the lead in that. At least it sounded like it. I said myself or someone, from the county would be happy to, participate on that. But like I said, he did say he was going to reach out to some of these faith-based organizations who, have quite big facilities and see, what might be arranged there. So that's what I know at this point, but, I think connecting up with the city of Newport would be a good plan. And it sounds like that's something Spencer's looking into as well.
So I'm sure you realized I'm going to put this on here. And I put it on because I was wondering if there was any funds available. Also, we may have to come and ask you for some help on things. So, and I just wanted to know if there was any plans, like a project turnkey for the Newport area, anything like that. I'm gonna keep pushing on it until we get something going, and that's, I am. So, and that's the way it works, and that's what you guys would do too. So, yeah. Okay, so thanks for the information. And I knew that the fairgrounds was not going to be available, so that's we're moving on. We can't really do congregate housing at this point anyway, as far as I can tell. COVID is still a big issue, and we don't want to put everybody together. So, thanks.
One more thing. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Hall.
I was just going to say that the initial $65 million in funding for Project Turnkey, has all been allocated, but I think there is hope among a lot of homeless and housing advocates around the state that if it produces the kind of results that everybody's expecting, that the initial hope was to acquire and convert between 800 and 1,000 motel units statewide. And I think they came in at just over 900, that because this is a need that's not going away. I think we all know that, not going away anytime soon, that the possibility of a second round of Project Turnkey, there's nothing specific in discussion at this point, but I have heard people say, maybe in the next long session of the legislature, that could be one of the asks.
Commissioner Jacobson?
Yeah, the other thing I was just going to add, Betty, maybe a conversation to have is there's a bunch of money sitting with Community Services Consortium for both kind of emergency COVID housing and emergency housing. And I think last year that money went to Chance, and I'm not sure. I know there was some, pretty big changes at Chance recently, and I'm not sure if that was all spent out or if there's additional funds coming. So connecting up with CSC and kind of finding out where their winter sheltering money is and who has it for this year might be a good idea.
Okay, I will do that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. It's been on my list, but if you're able to do that, I would appreciate it.
Yep. Oh, we keep pushing it out in different directions. And yeah, that the affordable housing group met today, and we ran out of time to talk about everything. So we always do. So I will get in touch with them. Thanks.
Well, that might be a good segue to skip down to the county housing strategy. I think we were already kind of touching on it in the conversations we just had, but Commissioner Hall, anything to add about the county housing strategy?
Well, I mean, we don't have a document that's designated Lincoln County housing strategy per se. I think what we continue to try to do is support cities as they take leads on bringing projects in, things like the 110 unit Aqua Vista that opened last year in Newport, the 107 unit 25th Street apartments that are going to be coming to Lincoln City, hopefully breaking ground next year. That it just seems the model that the state is funding with record amounts going into the LIFT bond funding program, as well as the existing 4% and 9% tax credits, is you need a private nonprofit developer or for-profit, but most of these are nonprofit organizations that you know, that the formula that I see working over and over again is the city gets a developer interested in the community, has a specific site that they can work with the developer on acquiring, and then the city and county, like on all these recent projects, as we have with earlier projects, have jointly done long-term property tax breaks. We've provided some local grant support money to, you know, be able to list the county along with the city and others as supporters. So I think it's, you know, that's going to be the course of multifamily development. We're still trying to support single family development, and this really was a record-setting year for funding for housing and community services to support housing development, homeless services, all types of services. I think it ended up being over $900 million in state and then federal dollars that gets funneled through the agency as well. But you know, the challenge always is getting money out the door. The agency is going to have to be filling, I believe, 140 new positions that are being created as a result of this extra funding. And then at the same time, you know, there's the challenge of supporting wildfire recovery in the housing realm and getting the state and federal rent assistance money out the door as well. That's a program that frankly has had some hurdles, software issues, and some counties, community action agencies being much more efficient than others in getting dollars out the door. I don't know. My one observation would be, you know, there are challenges that go with scarcity, and then when you do have abundance of resources, it's like there's a whole nother set of challenges. But I think momentum is there, and hopefully we'll continue. You know, that we've got a governor and a legislature that really have had an amazing commitment to this process over the last few years, trying to provide funding, trying to provide resources and tools to cities and counties. And but you know, it's decades of neglect that we're fighting to overcome, but at least the momentum is there now to deal with those things.
Anything to add, Commissioner Jacobson? I might note that I think Commissioner Hall's list of recent successes points to the fact that if you go back a little bit further, there really wasn't much activity as far as housing development, and certainly affordable housing. I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago that the housing project in Yachats was completed that included affordable housing. So again, it's all relative, but certainly there is some positive momentum in my mind. And then I know Commissioner Jacobson was a big proponent, and I think first came up with the idea that the county has foreclosed on some residential properties, and why not, with the right understanding and parameters, turn those properties over to be managed as affordable housing. So rather than get myself in trouble with more details on those efforts, I might look to Commissioner Jacobson.
Yeah, that's true. We have done that. I mean, tax foreclosed property is, you know, it pops up where it pops up. We can't control where we get those properties, but we did have several lots when I first came to the county. I think they were just taken a few years ago and kind of sitting in our inventory. They were up in Lincoln City. It was actually a developer who bought them all, and then during the recession could not develop and stopped paying property taxes. And we gave 2 of those to the tribe to develop workforce housing for their workforce. We gave 2 to Habitat for Humanity, and I think they just selected their families for those homes, if I recall correctly. And then we gave 1 to Northwest Coastal Housing. There actually was a triplex that we did try to give away in Toledo a couple of years ago, and everyone gave us a very generous no thank you on that property. Not in the best of shape, as you might imagine. The other thing I was just going to touch on, and we continue to do that as different things come in, and we think there might be an opportunity to there. The other 2 things I was going to mention is that the county is going to try to put out an RFP for a housing developer sometime between now and the end of the year. Commissioner Hunt led an effort for kind of some listening sessions on economic development, and you're probably not super surprised that housing and broadband and childcare rose up to that list. So we feel it's kind of time to do something a little bit radical, and so we're going to take some of the money we typically spend on economic development and spend it on housing. So don't have much details on that yet, just that it will coming at the end of the year. The other thing that, while it doesn't necessarily impact Toledo a whole lot, I feel in some ways it does, because of course we had a large net loss in the housing available when we had a fire last year in Lincoln County. And so I have been working very closely on that, and the state, a lot of the resources Commissioner Hall was talking about, some of that was for permanent wildfire housing. And they are trying desperately, the contractors the state is working with, to find some property in North Lincoln County to build permanent housing there for wildfire survivors that can't go back home, many of which were renters. And those properties are either sold or are not going to go back to be a rental. So I feel like at least that hopefully will help us not have a net loss. At least we can get back to where we were a little bit, which is important. So those are the kind of updates on housing that I have.
I might add that Mayor Cross was part of one of the 4 groups that were listening sessions. And as Commissioner Jacobson's already noted, no surprise that housing, childcare, and broadband were the top 3 topics that came out of the 4 listening sessions that were held. But I mean, if nothing else, it provides, rather than anecdotal information, it provides, clear evidence that yes, these are the priorities. So appreciate the mayor's participation in those. And the other thing, going back to these foreclosed properties, of course, the county has a little bit of a balancing act. Our fiduciary responsibility says, we need to realize value for assets of the county. So it's not just a matter of saying, gee, we foreclosed on a property, let's make it affordable housing. There has to be some analysis there. And frankly, our fiduciary responsibility, we owe that to the citizens. But when it works well. So anything else?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I say one more thing on the foreclosed housing? Just that I find there's a lot of people that I run across who think the county is setting on a huge inventory of residential housing or land that could be developed for residential housing. And, that's just not the case. A lot of these properties are odd slivers, or, frankly, it's pretty rare for us to get prime either buildable lots or existing residential properties coming to us through foreclosure. But as we've talked about, when that happens, we do actively look for the opportunity to work with nonprofit developers to realize some housing on that property.
I might even be a little more specific and say, most of the time, if we've taken over a property because of foreclosure for non-tax payments, the former owner hasn't done much to maintain the property, so they're pretty miserable generally. Second of all, a lot of the property are like, practically vertical hillsides, a little bit difficult to build on. So just a couple of challenges that we face with foreclosed properties. So Commissioner Jacobson?
I'll just add, and I think Amy's still on the call. She can add stuff too after me if she wants to, but I will just add to the storytelling and say that, we had the FBI contact us once after we took a property in tax foreclosure, saying they had wanted to look for human teeth for many years and never could get a search warrant. So just to give you some idea of some of the stuff we deal with.
Well, and just to add to the kind of good stories is the triplex that Commissioner Jacobson spoke of that's on Elder Street was actually purchased by a local gentleman who turned it into HUD rentals. So, I mean, that had a great ending and at a benefit to everyone. Another one we took on Spruce Street was also purchased by a private party who turned it into a rental. So
yeah, thanks, Amy, for that. So sometimes even though they're, they go to private individuals, the net gain in housing, is tangible in our community. Thanks, Amy.
Well, we're hoping that to add to the success stories on housing, currently at the county planning department is a 30-unit complex for here in Toledo. And so hopefully that'll get through that relatively unscathed and be able to break ground on that this coming spring. We're really hoping that'll take off.
Wonderful.
One of the things that prompted this question from our end was the year before COVID hit, there was a countywide meetings and it came out of a grant to do a countywide housing strategy. And I was just curious, has there been any updates made to that since the Otis fire, since COVID, since all the other things that have occurred in the last 2 years to not radically change it, but to ratchet it up to where we thought we were going to be in 10 years, and now we're there in 2.
I would have to, I guess, defer potentially to County Council Ewell, but I believe you're referring to the study where state of Oregon provided money to the county, and then the state hired the consultant that the county then worked with and developed the plan. And I remember the plan was presented to the board, and it contained, some, I guess, areas of success and areas that we can continue to focus on. But to be honest, without having the plan in front of me, I'm not sure of any more specific information at this time, other than to say, boy, our plates are full.
Yeah, I guess one thing I would add, Mayor Cross, is I think that plan was helpful in certain ways. One is it kind of pointed out some areas between different planning departments, between cities and the county, that could be more consistent. It also allowed to some code change. There was some code change, I think, at the city of Lincoln City around childcare and around allowing shelter housing inside churches. And we actually did a little bit of a code change for the very few areas we have in the unincorporated parts that actually have water and sewer, and allowing them to be more higher density, which is more in line with what cities do when you have water and sewer available. So there was definitely some helpful things. I guess
I wasn't saying there wasn't.
I'm going to say there isn't some helpful things, but I guess in terms of updating the plan, I mean, I think there could be some utility in that, but generally speaking, I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of over the planning, and I'm kind of ready for some tangible stuff. So, I mean, if it was kind of like, do you want us to put efforts in building some stuff, or do you want us to put efforts in redoing this plan? I'd go for the doing stuff. And so I'm not necessarily pushing real hard on updating the plan, because I feel like at this point, the things that kind of needed to get out of it, which were some, policy change, which was helpful, is done, and let's do some stuff. That's where I'm at.
Well, that goes back to your prior comment, Commissioner Jacobson. We want to do something radical with housing and work on an RFP where, the measure of success is units built, not a new plan.
Yep.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with that. And Katie, you've known me well enough. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I was just curious with the, for lack of a better word, the rapid acceleration of where it projected us to be. How are we how are we dealing with it more than updating a plan?
We're gonna get an RFP out.
Yeah, that's
It's
what we
gonna
decided
focus
to
on
do.
units.
Yeah, I mean, we did that. We helped advocate for Project Turnkey. I know Claire and I were both involved in that, Doug as well. I think we just started trying to pull in as much resources as we could. And I think the RFP that we're about to do is part of that plan. Trying to get wildfire housing dealt with is also part of that plan. So that's my answer, Rod. Hope that helps.
All right,
It does, Katie. Thank you.
we're a little over time, but we've got one agenda item still, the animal shelter. I don't know if, yes, the sheriff is still here or Commissioner Jacobson.
Well, I think there was a specific question
okay.
that
Yeah.
came through, and I think it was something about like farm animals.
Right, the large animal
large,
side of it.
yeah.
I know that I know from talking to Mayor Sawyer that there is room up there to allow for large animals. But as someone who has worked around large animals in the course of my lifetime, I'm not sure how conducive they'll be to aircraft and helicopters. So I'm curious how we're going to work around all of that. So
Yeah, so I'll let Sheriff Landers and myself kind of tag team this one, but we are kind of just in the beginning stages of working with our contractor. They did kind of some focus groups meetings to kind of come up with kind of the direction we're going in, and also looking at the resources we have. That's our biggest constraint, right, is how much money we have. And then they're going to go out and do kind of a larger community process to get more input. So I would say, budget's going to be a constraining factor. I don't think that we probably have the resources, because we also don't have resources for increased staff. We have the same number of staff we're going to have. I don't, at least in my vision, and this has not been decided yet, but in my vision, I don't see that is a permanent, sheltering site for large animals. We have a lot of private landowners that we work with, and they probably will still be worked with. But I think, at least in the kind of discussions I was in the focus group I was in, at least having an area to hold those animals real temporarily so that they can be like dewormed and things like that before they're going on a landowner's property. Because of course, having animals that may be carrying diseases and stuff like that, it puts the landowners in a hard spot with their own animals they have. And so I think the idea being that you maybe had a temporary spot, if that's in budget, and then, after they're, like I said, kind of dealt with medically, maybe they go on to some of the landowners we work with. But we're still kind of in process of figuring out, of all the things we want. And, there's a whole big list coming from all the people that have given input so far, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg on input.
Well, Katie, I'm just glad you're thinking
sorting it
about
out. Yeah.
it. Because that was looking and listening, to the sound bites that you get, right? You don't know if it's being considered, and it sounds like, yep, you're on top of it. And that was where my question came from, was, how do we do it? And it sounds like you have a good idea on how to do it and what to have happen. I think the idea of a temporary place where they can go and get the medical attention that's needed before being moved out is a great idea. I just wanted to make sure somebody had that, in that pipeline of thought. So
Yeah, it's come up already. And Sheriff Landers, is there anything you wanted to add to what I said?
You kind of touched on everything. I think the plan is, there are a lot of other considerations when you're looking at large animals, especially for an animal shelter like this. It's not necessarily just the room, but one of the things we rely on a lot and have relied on a lot is like the sheriff's posse, as far as when we've needed somebody to take like neglected horses, neglected livestock, the fires for evacuating a lot of animals out of the fire area. It's just really a quick phone call, and they have always come to the rescue to help out. And but as far as a daily, what I'm hearing from our shelter staff is there are a lot of considerations that go into that, and when we do have the budget constraints, as the commissioner is talking about, that would probably require a lot more lot more funding to make that happen. So it's not that it's out of the question. It's definitely things that have come up again in these workshops that we've had in this phase one process. But you know, there's a lot of considerations to go into that. I'll just leave it at that. And just kind of a quick update on that. You know, really right now we're they're working on a plan to work with the city of Newport to finalize the lease agreement. And then again, coming back with giving us a cost estimate, a kind of what ballpark we're in as far as cost. We're going to need other donations or grants or whatever else out there to help fund the cost of building the shelter. But I'm really confident and have really good meetings with the architect company that was here, and I'm really looking forward to this as we move forward.
All right. I believe that concludes the items on our agenda. Any last thoughts or comments? We're about 13 minutes over, but
just want to say thank you.
All right.
We really appreciate it.
I think another example of talking about some issues that are important to all of us, and certainly will help us work together more effectively. So I'd say it was a success. And before I adjourn, I will note that the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners will be meeting Wednesday at 10 a.m. That's Wednesday the 15th. It will be a virtual meeting. And that's our regularly scheduled meeting. And also on that date, we'll be holding 2 executive sessions, one at 1:30, and it will be under ORS 192.660 parentheses 2 parentheses A, to consider employment. And we will meet again at 3 p.m. on Wednesday for the same, for an executive session for the same purpose. So with that, if there are no last comments, thank you all. Have a good evening.